Welcome to the fifth video on Hume's skeptical argument from section 4 of the inquiry concerning human understanding. In this video, I'm going to turn to the third step in Hume's argument, where he's going to argue that all conclusions from experience are not founded on reason. And that's going to allow him to then conclude that all conclusions concerning matters of fact, all inferences concerning matters of fact, all knowledge that we acquire of matters of fact is not founded on reason. And in order to do this, we have to be careful to understand properly what he means by reason. Well, reason is going to be the faculty for establishing relations of ideas. And so one thing he's going to mean is, well, are conclusions from experience founded intuitively? He's going to need to rule that out. He's also going to rule out that conclusions from experience can be founded demonstratively. But finally, there's going to be a third kind of reasoning that he's going to rule out, namely probable reasoning. He's going to show that our conclusions from experience can't be instances of probable reasoning, where the way that probable reasoning needs to be understood is as demonstrative reasoning on the basis of past experience. So what would an example of demonstrative reasoning on the basis of past experience be? Well, take astronomy. In astronomy, astronomers make a bunch of observations of heavenly bodies in the night sky, and they have experience of how those bodies move. You know, the moon goes from being a new moon to a full moon every 28 days or so, over and over. And so they start acquiring experience of the new moon, then the full moon, the new moon, then the full moon. And they derive on the basis of, say, past experience of where Mercury has been in the night sky, they come up with mathematical formulas to predict where Mercury will be in the future. And so they use these they demonstrate these mathematical formulas, and then they apply this demonstrative formula in order to predict, on the basis of past experience, where the planets will be. So that's probable reasoning. And Hume's going to need to rule that out too, so that our causal reasoning can't be demonstrative reasoning on the basis of past experience. Okay, let's turn to so we saw in the last video that our knowledge concerning matters of fact is based on past experience. In this video, we're going to examine what it would mean for our knowledge based on past experience to be founded on reason. So what Hume's opponent would have to establish. And in the next video, we're going to examine Hume's argument for why this can't be done. why Hume's opponent can't establish that that our immediate knowledge of matters of fact is based on reason. Okay, so what are we investigating? Well, we've got this example from last time, right? Which is that I've got this past experience of drinking water, my thirst being quenched, drinking water, my thirst being quenched, drinking water, my thirst being quenched. And that somehow makes possible this inference from my impression of drinking water now to forming the belief that in the future, soon my thirst will be quenched, right? And so there's this transition from my present impression of drinking water now to my thirst soon being quenched. And Hume wants to know, well, can that transition be based on reason? Can that be a matter of reason? Well, one way that it would be a matter of reason is if it was intuitive. Can it be intuitive? Well, no, it's not intuitive. Why? Well, if it were intuitive, then just from having this sensation and forming the idea of my drinking water, I could reflect on that idea and see that soon my thirst would be quenched. But we saw in the last video that this idea on its own isn't enough, right? I have to have also had past experience. And so that past experience, because I can't reflect on this idea, but have to have had that past experience, it can't be merely intuitive. It can't be a priori. I can't get there just from reflecting on my ideas. Just like how Adam couldn't reflect on his idea of water to see that it would drown him, right? So it's not going to be a relation of ideas that I can get intuitively, but can it be demonstrated? Can we get this transition, this inference, through a kind of demonstrative medium, some kind of intermediate idea that brings us to the idea of my thirst being quenched once that medium is added to the present sensation? Well, it looked like past experience was such a medium, right? And so maybe so. I mean, maybe we could get there using past experience, right? So maybe past experience could mediate the connection. Well, no, that's not going to work. Why not? Well, for one reason, it's not a contradiction if I become more thirsty when I drink water. But more substantively, what? Why can't past experience do it? Pause. See if you can figure it out. Why can't past experience show me that in the future my thirst will be quenched on the basis of my present impression? Well, past experience is in the past. It just tells me about what has happened. And on its own, that's not enough to tell me about what will happen in the future. Past experience just tells me about the past. It doesn't tell me about what will happen, right? It's about what has happened, not what will happen. And so although it tells me that in the past, an impression of drinking water has later been accompanied by my impression of my thirst being quenched, it doesn't tell me about what will happen in the future now that I've drunk water, right? So I mean, similarly, right? It's not a contradiction if there's a global pandemic, despite not having been about there never having been one in our lifetimes. And so even though we have past experience of no pandemics, past experience of no pandemics, that's no guarantee that in the future or right now, there won't be a pandemic. And so because it only tells me about the past, it doesn't seem like it can get me to the future. Okay, well, but what if we bring in a further principle? What if we bring in a further medium? So past experience on its own only tells me about the past. But what if we brought in the principle that the future always resembles the past? What if that was part of the medium too? Well, here, let me move this down. So I'm going to have to erase this. If that were the case, then what would we have? Well, we would have my present impression of drinking water, and then my memory, which is my past experience of when I drank water, my thirst would be quenched. And then my belief that the future resembles the past. And so from there, I would form the belief that my thirst is quenched. So if we suppose that the future resembles the past is certain, if we could get this idea that the future resembles the past, would we have a demonstrative connection? What do you think? Take a minute, pause. Well, it seems like we would, right? If we suppose that the future resembles the past is certain, then given the past experience of drinking water, thirst being quenched, drinking water, thirst being quenched, there would be a kind of contradiction if my thirst wasn't quenched right now after drinking water, right? I mean, this would be a bit like the astronomy case. So if the future must resemble the past, and we've had past experience of drinking water, thirst being quenched, then because the future resembles the past this time, after I drink water, my thirst must soon be quenched. Right? So the future resembles the past. I drink water right now. In the past, drinking water has quenched my thirst. And so therefore, this time, necessarily, my thirst must be quenched. And so if Hume's opponent could establish with certainty the principle that the future resembles the past, then his opponent would have established a kind of demonstrative connection between past experience and the causal connection. And so that would show that through probable reasoning, we could establish immediate knowledge of a matter of fact. And so that's what Hume needs to show can't work. So if we suppose that FRP is certain, will we have a demonstrative connection? Yes. So this is what Hume So what Hume needs to show is that we can't have certain knowledge of the future resembling the past, right? But it's certain knowledge, right? He does think that the future resembles the past, He just thinks that it's not certain, that it's not known through reason. And so that's what we'll turn to in the next video. We'll turn to showing that the future resembles the past is not known through reason. And so because the future resembles the past can't be known through reason, well, then we can't get this demonstrative connection where I can know that soon my thirst will be quenched on the basis of my having drunk water, my past experience of drinking water, my thirst being quenched, and the futures resembling the past.